Hey everyone, it's Michael Kikle. I hope you're doing well today, and I finally have a review here for Deadpool and Wolverine, or Deadpool 3. So I missed this in the theaters. It was going to be a big deal because of the return of Hugh Jackman, and I wanted to see it because of him and because I like the Deadpool movies. Who doesn't? I'm not the most hardcore fan, mainly because I don't think they feel exactly like the comics, or at least the comics that I've read of Deadpool. A lot of the Liefeld stuff. But anyway, I was super curious what would be done with this movie, and then I heard a lot of things. I'm probably going to delve into some spoiler territory, so just giving you a heads up in case you still haven't seen it. Of course, the movie just hit physical media, which is cool, and I plan on picking up a copy, but when I was still really sick about a week or two ago, I had a couple of days from work that I had to take off. I just couldn't function. I just wanted to sleep and sleep and sleep. I was sleeping like 12 and 13 hours a day. And one day, before my wife came home from work, I decided, okay, I'm going to rent this movie. I know it was expensive. I don't like renting movies when they're still in the theaters or whatever. But try as I might, I couldn't get to the theater to see the damn thing. So I rented it for like $20. And as much as I hate that, I gotta say, I enjoyed this movie. It's a fucking mess of a movie, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. So, I don't even know where to start with this. Number one, this is 6 years after the previous Deadpool movie, which is kind of surprising. I didn't realize it had been that long. For some reason, I had it in my head that the first came out in like 2017, 2018. The previous one was like 2019, 2020, somewhere in there. And that's not the case. I don't know if it's because of COVID or what. But the buyout happened with 20th Century Fox. Disney owns them and Hulu now. And as much as I don't like that, I gotta tell you, this movie, from what I had been hearing going into it, and of course all the big stuff that had been spoiled, all the cameos that had been spoiled, try as I might to avoid them, it was like trying to avoid that Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire were going to be in No Way Home. It was like trying to avoid that Luke Skywalker was dead in Last Jedi, like before opening weekend even happened. It was a mess, dude, when it came to that stuff. I fucking hate people who spoil everything. That was a big problem for this movie, because I felt like by the time I saw it, that I had already been spoiled quite a bit. There wasn't much else to be surprised about, despite enjoying the movie, you know? And this just is one of those movies I add to the list, like Guardians 3, like Infinity War and Endgame, that I had to miss in theaters, part of the MCU stuff. Those are the ones I cared about that I missed. I got to see No Way Home, fortunately, in the theater. I really enjoyed that. But anyway, this movie's plot is so ridiculously overcomplicated in a way that it didn't need to be. Essentially, it's the last 20th Century Fox-centric movie. It's one that has to do with them. That timeline of movies are being deleted. Deadpool has an interview years ago in the beginning of the film with Jon Favreau, but it's really Happy Hogan. It's not Jon Favreau, you know, but he's there, which is cool, that he wants to join the Avengers, and it doesn't feel like Deadpool absolutely at all. It doesn't feel like Wade. There's a couple of moments in that scene that come out to be more like him, but it's kind of annoying, to be honest with you. Sorry, I'm still trying to get my voice back. Number two, he gets rejected, and now this buyout happened with Disney. We never just directly say, until little jokes are thrown in here and there, that Deadpool's in on with the audience. No one else is ever brought into this because it wouldn't make sense to them for the fourth wall breaks. But Disney bought out 20th Century Fox, and if people in the audience didn't know that, I cannot imagine how confused they would be of how Disney got away with slandering this other company that people probably still think is around. Very strange. But Hugh Jackman was coming back, and apparently he is like the center of the X-Men universe, which is, realistically, it's true. He was considered, in my opinion, even more of the team leader in X-Men, the X-Men movies from back when I was a kid, more so than Cyclops, who was the actual leader. It was kind of disrespectful to Scott, to be honest, but that's pretty much what it was. And Hugh Jackman was a perfect casting, just like James Marsden was for Scott all those years ago. But this is a very X-Men centric film, but it has a lot of other things in there that surprised me with the cameos, like many of you probably know. But Deadpool essentially has to find a Wolverine, the Wolverine, that he has to do something with. I still don't understand what the fuck he had to do and why he had to go find a Wolverine. It was something like if he saves this Wolverine, who's not even the Wolverine we ever met, they make that very clear, that this is the worst Wolverine to ever exist, but it's the only one who will help him. We watch Wade Wilson go and not interview, that's the wrong word. They don't sit down and have a fucking podcast discussion, but he goes from place to place, dimension to dimension, to discuss with these different Wolverines. Like, you have the Age of Apocalypse Wolverine, where he has like one hand. Dude, that Wolverine looks so fucking good in live action. You have the Wolverine, I think it was the first time Wolverine ever appeared in comics or something, where he fights the Hulk, and he has the John Byrne costume, like the orange and brown one. That was so rad. That was so rad, dude. You have the like 5 foot tall Wolverine, which was kind of funny. It was a little bit of an odd joke, and it looks like shit in the movie, even if they did use a real like 5'2" actor, because his social media is everywhere now because of this movie. Even if they did that, it still looks like it was tampered with in CGI. I don't like it. It kind of looks like the Hobbit movies a little bit, when they have, like Bilbo or whatever his name is, being so small, and it's not filmed like Lord of the Rings, where they have like an actor closer to the camera and the shorter actors further away from the camera, and they kind of play an optical illusion on you. It's not really like that. It looks a little ugly sometimes. But anyway, he has to go find a Wolverine to save, and it ends up being this Wolverine we've never met, who eventually dons the yellow costume and eventually loses the sleeves. And what I don't like about that, and I said this over and over again in my discussions with other people, it pisses me off because every fucking bit of media and every clown and every news organization kept talking about how jacked Hugh Jackman got for this movie again, after doing all these musical things and The Greatest Showman and all that, where he lost all this muscle mass. People kept raving about how he had gained all this muscle in so little time and just done all this shit. And I'm like, dude, if you look at Hugh Jackman in this movie and you can't tell that they did the Jane Foster Thor arm CGI shit for him, you're crazy. You're fucking blind and you don't know what you're talking about. It is so clear that the arms don't even match his face's skin tone when the arms are exposed. And I'm not trying to shame the guy. I love Hugh Jackman. I've been a bigger fan of him since I was a kid in the first X-Men movie, before I think anybody was, to be honest. I loved him. I still do. The dude is an immaculate actor. That is CGI musculature, if I've ever seen it. Later on in the film, they have him with just his mask on and no shirt or costume because it gets destroyed. It is clearly somebody else in that costume, a body double, if you will, who is heavily built and heavily in shape and heavily leaned out. And it doesn't even look like what Jackman looked like back, like, not even 5 years ago, not even 7 years ago, And I know we're talking 7 years for like a 60-year-old man. I know we're talking about that. I'm not trying to attack him, but it's clearly another guy with a mask on that's supposed to look like Jackman in that scene. It is clearly not him in the ending. But anyway, obviously Wolverine can't stand Deadpool because he talks and talks and talks. Personally, I think Deadpool, as much as I love him and as much as I love Ryan Reynolds, I think he's more annoying in this movie than he's ever been, even though I like the movie. And it kind of goes back with the plot. Even though Deadpool and the plot get on my nerves in this situation, in this particular film, and I love part 1 and part 2. Well, I guess I like part 1. I love part 2. I think it's actually better than part 1. Controversial hot take, just saying. I still like this movie, There's a ton of Deadpool variants. We all knew we were getting into that. You have Lady Deadpool in here, voiced by Blake Lively. Jesus, she has a great voice. I never realized that. I like a lot of the Deadpool variants. It feels a little bit too much like modern-day Marvel comic book, Does anybody else feel that way when you watched this? They just don't feel like they're as good as they could have been. I feel like we should have seen like a Deadpool Spider-Man, a Deadpool Hulk, like a big-ass green Hulk, maybe even a red Hulk with a Deadpool mask on or something. What we got instead were like Japanese Deadpool, Kid Deadpool, Dogpool, which can I just say, Dogpool physically disgusts me. And I know people have tried to say and push all over media when this movie came out, even in the posters, like this poster here for the video that I have here for you. That dog is fucking gross. And I know the idea is that, oh, well, Deadpool's a gross person. I get it. I'm not a fucking idiot. But what I will say is the dog is disgusting. And even that CGI long-ass tongue they attach to that dog, which I hope to God is CGI. There are scenes that I'm convinced it is, and other scenes where I'm like, is that shit real? Because it looks like a piece of like, if somebody took like a stick of pepperoni and just sliced the very outside layer off, it looks like you stuffed that in that dog's mouth and it's hanging out. That dog grosses me out so bad. It is so mangy and ugly. I don't know. You know, I fucking hate that dog. But there's some really good moments in here. There's one version of Deadpool called Nice Pool, and it's usually Ryan Reynolds with no mask on, walking around with Lord of the Rings hair and like braids in his hair. I love a moment with Nice Pool when he gets completely brutalized and shot over and over again because regular Deadpool, our Deadpool, doesn't realize that he can't regenerate. That scene with Nice Pool being shot up is hilarious. The rest of the movie with him and Dogpool and the regular Deadpool constantly bickering, I can't stand him. I fucking hate Nice Pool. I can't stand him. I know why he has to be here, but there could have been somebody else, you know, in my personal opinion. Another thing I want to bring attention to that I think a lot of people really don't talk about much here is, once again, even though this had a smaller budget than a lot of the humongous MCU movies that have flopped, like The Marvels and Black Widow, this movie, to me, has the worst CGI, just like a lot of those newer MCU films, compared to the previous two Deadpool films. It has really rough CGI, in my opinion. The main villain here that I need to get into, and the world that Logan is from, is basically a post-apocalyptic wasteland that they travel to. Oh no, he's not from there. They go there at one point. And the main villain is Cassandra Nova, who I knew nothing about going into this movie. I feel like I've heard the name before, but apparently she is Professor X's twin sister, and she has like the same abilities as him, but she's a bad guy. She has a bunch of henchmen. She has people like this one Red Devil dude that I've seen in the comics before. I don't know his name. I don't think it's Mephisto, obviously. He's something. I don't know what he is, though. He looks like Satan. And then you have like her abilities, Cassandra Nova's abilities, are mainly boiled down to getting into your brain, seeing your life, making you imagine things, but also for some reason putting her hands in your head in a very weird body horror way, which I'm surprised Disney allowed that. That was very strange stuff when my wife got here to watch some of the movie that I hadn't finished before she got here. She was pretty grossed out by that, which made it all the much better. It was kind of fun watching her be nasted. Nasted? That's a new one. Being grossed out by that. But anyway, Cassandra Nova, the actress performing that role, she does a pretty decent job, in my opinion. But I don't know if I would have put Cassandra Nova as the villain here. I get why that's the pick. It's because of Logan and his relationship with, Professor X. I kept trying to say Patrick Stewart. Same person, but still. I kept thinking that this is supposed to be a correlation with his relationship to Professor X, his past with him, how he let all of the world down because all of the X-Men were killed because of Wolverine's negligence. That's the big character arc for this particular Wolverine. And I loved it. And I gotta be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of Logan. Like, not the character, the movie. Yeah, I said it. I haven't talked about it much on this channel before. Not a fan of Logan as a movie. I just don't. Everybody justifies it with all this Western bullshit. Get the fuck out of here. I understand you like the movie, that's fine. But that's not, in my opinion, what the final Wolverine movie should have been. It should have been something closer in tone to The Wolverine, which I loved. It might be my favorite Wolverine movie. Despite the bone claws, I know. But I didn't like Logan. I didn't like the look of Logan. I understand they wanted to do Old Man Logan, but like in their own rendition. And everybody has raved about that fucking boring-ass movie for years. And even this movie pays tribute to that. I love the beginning when they dig up literally Logan's corpse and just kill a bunch of guys with Logan's bones. That's great. But I gotta say, not liking Logan, I think this is a better performance from Hugh Jackman than any Wolverine film out there. And I love his performances. Again, he is Wolverine for me. But the other things that he's done in this movie are just amazing. He's wonderful. Everything centered around Wolverine in this movie is excellent. From the costume, dude, when he pulled the mask from his back that we didn't know was there, it kind of came out of nowhere. But when he pulled his mask out of the back of his costume over his head, I got chills, dude. And I knew it was coming. It was all over social media once again. Clips on commercials and shit were showing it. But it was just magnificent to see that. There was so much love for Wolverine in this messy-ass, storyless movie that made no sense, and I loved it. But let's talk about Disney for a moment. This movie was having this massive reputation for constantly talking shit about Disney. They do it like twice, and it's not really even an insult. It's just like, oh, Deadpool's talking to Wolverine, and he says, hey, welcome to the MCU, you're joining at a low point. Oh yeah, that really put Disney in their place. Yeah, Disney is, like all of the shills said, Disney is definitely open to being criticized and allowing themselves to make fun of themselves. That is the most robot horse shit I have ever heard in my life. This movie barely disses Disney. It's the most watered down Deadpool movie, in my opinion. Even though it is sexual, even though it is awesomely gory and bloody, even though I think the blood obviously is mostly CGI, it doesn't look as good as the blood in part 1 and part 2 of Deadpool, in my opinion. But, I can sacrifice that. I don't care, as long as the movie's entertaining, and it was. But the watered-down insults to Disney really annoyed me. But they kept the sexual stuff, not as much, but they kept it in there. There were no heavy discussions about pegging and everything else. I think there was one joke in there about that. That was pretty decent. But this is R-rated. I'm glad they kept it that way. But I don't know, man. I think it wasn't what it could have been, and I feel like it's overcomplicated, because every person I've talked to, including my two really good friends, Parker and Anthony, they agreed with me when I finally saw the movie the other week, that story is so needlessly complicated in a way that it kind of kicks itself in the groin a little bit. Is that possible? Can someone kick themselves in the nuts? I guess. If you're old, if they hang too low, I don't know. But anyway, this is a mess of a movie when it comes to the story, and I have yet to meet a person that says they understand that story. And if they say that to you, they're fucking lying. Now I want to talk about some cameos. The first big cameo that showed up in here that I was so happy about, that I can remember, was Henry Cavill. And of course, everybody ruined that for me. The joke was all over the internet. I couldn't avoid it. It wasn't like a clip like, spoilers, new Wolverine and cameo scene. It wasn't like that. It was a picture of Henry Cavill as Cavalrine, as Deadpool calls him. Now I'm going to tell you, I loved the look of Wolverine as Henry Cavill or vice versa. This is Superman. And I kept thinking, Henry Cavill is an actor that he's like, for me, Jake Gyllenhaal. I'll watch anything the dude is in. I don't care what it is. I was curious going into the movie after being spoiled about that, what he would sound like in the movie. And his voice is perfect. It's perfect. He is perfect for the replacement for Hugh Jackman. If Marvel does not do that, they are fucking crazy. And I'm not one of these fanboys that are like obsessed with Wolverine's height. That's weird. That's stupid. It's like me focusing so much on Hugh Jackman's CGI arms in this movie. It's dumb. I don't think we should focus that hard on Henry Cavill's height. But he is so good here in the voice when he says, "You were just leaving." It's so perfect, dude. I love it. And then the stories behind the scenes about him smoking cigars and getting sick from it because he had never done that, that's hilarious, man. It makes it even better. They said that they teased the hell out of him over that. But he was great. I want more I want more of Henry Cavill as Wolverine. I think it's been announced he was cast as somebody else. I don't remember who in the MCU, but I don't want that. I want him to play Wolverine from now on. Because Hugh Jackman is supposedly back. He says in this movie he's not coming back after this, that we won't see him again. I don't believe that. You'd be nuts if you didn't think he'd be in the Doctor Doom Robert Downey Jr. movie that I didn't get to make a video about. If you don't think he's going to be in any Avengers movies or any of these multiverse tie-in things, now that Deadpool and his friends he tried to rescue are part of this MCU world now, the 616 reality or whatever it is, if you didn't think that, I don't know what to tell you, but you're dumb. And then moving along to many of the other cameos in here, it shocked the hell out of me back when this was getting made that Jennifer Garner was going to be in this. I had my hopes very high that Ben Affleck would be in it, and it was never confirmed or denied before the movie came out whether he'd be in it. And then they have the fucking gall to be in this movie, have Jennifer Garner, who can barely fit into her costume, and I like Jennifer Garner, but have her in this movie and have her make a joke about Daredevil with Ben Affleck and how there was no reason to have him in here or some shit like that. And my friends still make jokes about it, like Parker and Anthony, my two buddies. Dude, get the fuck out of here. I like Charlie Cox. I cannot stand the Daredevil TV show. It's horseshit. It's not good. It's boring as hell, number one. But number two, it's not that great. Even though Charlie Cox is great, Foggy Nelson's actor is great, Karen's actor is great, that show's fucking boring. And I stand by the fact that I like both versions of the Daredevil movie more than I've ever liked the MCU bullshit they've done with Daredevil. So I'm annoyed with that, number one. But number two, if you couldn't get Ben Affleck for this, why the fuck did you have Jennifer Garner in this and not like Halle Berry's Storm? And Halle Berry was asked to be in it by Blake Lively if Ryan wanted her in it. And she was like, yeah, sure, bring me in. Why the fuck did we have Jennifer Garner in this and the little girl that played Laura, or X-23 from Logan, in this and not Halle Berry? Hell, we even got Blade. We have Wesley Snipes in this, and he lost a lot of muscle mass, by the way. I was kind of bummed for him, but I know he had all that prison time and stuff. He probably couldn't keep up the protein, but I love Wesley Snipes. I'm a huge fan of the guy. Could not believe that he was in this movie after it came out and people were talking about it. I love the first and only first Blade movie. I just saw 2 and 3. 2 for the first time ever. 3 for the first time in like 15, 16 years since I was a kid. And he's great here. He's genuinely funny. He's great. I love the throwback to jokes he made back in the old movie, like the ice skating uphill line. He's wonderful. I love the jokes in here about how he's the only Blade. He's the only Blade there's ever going to be. That's great, especially in context with what's going on with the Blade reboot remake they're trying to do. I love it. I love it. It's such a good thing. You have all of those good cameos in here, but you bring in Jennifer Garner, not even Eric Bana Hulk. In the Hulk versus Wolverine scene when Deadpool's trying to recruit him, I thought for sure that was going to be Eric Bana's Hulk and that he would be in the movie. No, he wasn't. And why the fuck is Eric Bana not in here? That's crazy too. Why is James Marsters Cyclops not in here? That's crazy. He should have been one of the first people they recruited, in my opinion. I don't give a shit about having Jean Grey in this. I just wanted Cyclops. Or Eric Bana Hulk. Or Ben Affleck Daredevil. That would have been great. But no, we got Jennifer Garner's fucking Elektra in this movie. But anyway, moving along to the big cameo that surprised the hell out of me from a movie that never happened but was discussed for a very, very long time. Around the time X-Men Origins Wolverine came out, Channing Tatum is in this playing Gambit. Now, I love Channing Tatum, and I love Gambit from when I was a kid watching the 90s series. Never read a comic with him in it or anything. But that was a movie they tried to make for a long time with Channing Tatum in the role, and it never came to fruition. The place that they're in, this desert wasteland, is kind of Mad Max-like. They call it the Void, and it's where Cassandra Nova rules and everything. And Channing Tatum's Gambit talks at one point about how he thinks he was even born in the Void, which is hilarious. And by the way, why was Blade in this, before I go any further? Because he was not He was not 20th Century Fox. That was something else. As in, like, a different company. Wasn't it like Harvey Weinstein's company, whatever that was? I don't know. I thought that was a little odd. But let's talk about Channing Tatum a little bit more. That, like, whatever Gambit wears on his head, you know, either Channing Tatum has a chubbier face than I ever realized, or that thing is too damn tight for his head. It looks great. The costume looks great. Everything there. But then he has his Cuban accent that Gambit has in the comics, and it is awful. I'm convinced that they completely either had him, and I think Channing Tatum is a good actor. I don't think he could pull off a Cuban accent in a good way. And it's fairly authentic, but it's so goofy that it doesn't work, you know? I have a friend that used to be my boss at my job, and he was Cuban. Used to be a doctor in Cuba, matter of fact. And his accent was so thick you could barely understand him. So I could relate to that in the film. That's the running joke with Gambit in this movie. But it's not just that. He just says weird shit. Like, he says weird shit in his weird, goofy accent. And it's goofier than what a Cuban accent should be. It's not like watching Scarface and having the Cubans there. You know what I mean? It just doesn't work for me. But this is Deadpool. It's a buddy comedy on top of that. It's supposed to be a comedy first and foremost, even though I don't think this movie is actually that funny, to be honest. I didn't even talk about that, but that's another discussion. I think that they played Gambit too much as a joke, and I don't like that, because Gambit's badass. We've all been wanting a Gambit movie for a long time, Channing Tatum or otherwise. But if he was about to do that accent during that movie, hell no. Don't even give me that movie. After seeing what they did with Gambit's accent here, I don't know if you could pull that off in a movie now and not have people laugh or not have people think about Channing Tatum, which is a shame because I love Gambit so much. But that is what it is, you know. Another thing I want to discuss, because this video is going on for like a half an hour now, is the soundtrack. The Deadpool films typically have a pretty mainstream throwback type of soundtrack, kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy does, but they do more like not so mainstream stuff a lot of the time. I hate the fact that they have Madonna's Like a Prayer, or whatever that song is called, playing in this movie so many times. I just don't like it. I don't like that song to begin with. I don't like Madonna to begin with. But having that be like the song that runs through this so much is so obnoxious. But can I tell you, I could watch a loop for like 3 hours of Deadpool dancing to Bye 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 by NSYNC, which is what the movie opens up with, by the way. I love it. It is so good as either an ending to the Deadpool movies, which I don't think after the money this made, there's no way that's the case that will happen, where they'll just not make any more Deadpool movies. I mean, clearly it's dropped in here that at one point in the future of the Avengers movies, that Thor will hold him while he's crying. Maybe Deadpool's dying. We don't know. It's kind of a nice little tease of something in the future, but that moment's not going to be taken serious. We all know that. But clearly this is not going to be the last Deadpool film before we get to that, with the Avengers Doom or whatever it's called. That's not going to be the case. The Bye 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 song is so good in here, and the dance with, I don't know if that was Ryan Reynolds or like somebody else, but that was so funny, and it made my wife and I laugh so much when she got to see that scene later on when I rewound the movie to show her that. We laughed so much because she does that joke dancing to that song if it comes on in the car, and with the arm, like where you're doing the bye 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 thing with your hand. My wife cracks me up. We laugh so much when she does that. And that makes me laugh seeing Deadpool do that. It was just so fun. I love that about it. The movie is fun. I enjoyed it, but it's a mess. It's a fucking mess, as much as I hate to say that. And I wanted to love it more than I did. But I just don't. I think Deadpool 1 and 2 are better. These multiverse movies were the worst fucking thing to ever happen to the MCU. Maybe you could have done one movie like that. Not only with, like, Endgame, but, like, as a standalone movie, No Way Home. No Way Home should have been the only one we did that way, and maybe this film, too. And that's it. Because it brought back all of these different versions of Wolverine, and so many cool things here, and I liked all of that. But having, like, Multiverse of Madness with Doctor Strange, it should have worked better, because Doctor Strange is an LSD trip, in the comics, from what I understand. That should have worked better. I thought Multiverse of Madness was horrible. And for a Sam Raimi movie to be as bad as it was, there was no excuse, and it wasn't his fault. I'm blaming Disney, the script writing for that. But all of these movies tying to that, it's too much, you know. The Marvels apparently is a lot like that. I haven't seen that before. I'm not digging that. I'm not digging that. And the only one that's been successful that hasn't done that was, what's it called? What was it called? Guardians of the Galaxy 3. So, anyway, this was a mostly good movie, but it's a mess, and the story doesn't make any sense. And if somebody told me they hated Deadpool and Wolverine because of how much of a mess it is, I would believe you, and I would be fine with that, 100%. I wouldn't tell you to go fuck yourself. I wouldn't be mean to you like I typically am in my videos. You would be right to feel that way, because it is kind of in some ways, and I don't know if it's because I had all these cameos spoiled for me, all these surprises spoiled for me. I truly believe that as time goes on, people will begin to turn on this movie. I don't think I will. I just don't think I'll rewatch this movie that much. I just think that for what it is, it's just a cameo movie. That's all it really is. It's a big love letter to 20th Century Fox. Excuse me, I can't talk. It's a big love letter to that. But that's really all it is in a lot of ways. I love in the end credits how instead of doing like a post-credit scene, which we do that, I love how we do like a whole tribute of all these behind-the-scenes footage moments from all these 20th Century Fox movies like the Fantastic Four films. By the way, I forgot to mention that Chris Evans was in this movie too, as not Captain America, but as Johnny Storm, which was a huge throwback. He didn't look like himself, though. Like in his face, his hairstyle, it was a little different. Like it wasn't like the Johnny I knew. They should have buzz cut his hair or something, man. But the costume looked great. The newer Fantastic Four logo and all that. I like that way more than what I'm seeing from this First Steps bullshit movie. But like all of these behind the scenes things in the credits, all that stuff really touched me deep down in my dark, evil, hatred-filled soul. It was great. I loved that stuff. It was very moving to me as somebody who grew up watching all of those movies, you know, from X-Men to Fantastic Four. I don't think there was any Daredevil. I could be wrong about that, but I thought there was. All of that stuff was nice. I really loved those. I thought it was a nice tribute. And playing a Green Day song, too, to a song called, what was it, Good Riddance? Is that what it was? That's kind of wild, because it sounds like a touching, sweet song, you know? Anyway, I really enjoyed this. Even if it's a giant mess, I enjoyed it. It's not something like Thor Ragnarok, or like, for that matter, well, Love and Thunder I didn't like, but Ragnarok I like, but it's a mess, you know? It's not like that. This is even more of a mess than something like Ragnarok or Volume 2 of Guardians, you know? It's not perfect, but it doesn't really need to be, you know? Not really, to be honest. But I do believe over time, like I said, people are going to turn on this movie and think it's terrible. I really do believe that. People were not coming out of the theater saying that kind of shit. But I think over time they will, because at some point, it's going to occur to people, you watch this movie for jokes about 20th Century Fox and about old movies we grew up on. The younger generations are going to think it sucks because they're not going to get any of these things. As time goes on, I mean. If the younger generations 20, 30 years down the road are watching these MCU movies still, they're going to hate this movie. I really believe that. I think time will change on this movie. It'll be one of those things that like Halloween from 1978 has a lot of grief thrown its way now because it hasn't aged the best, because it was a 70s film that is kind of slow, you know? If you didn't grow up on it like my generation did, which, you know, I was born in the 90s, it was still a big deal at that time, 20 years later. When I was growing up on it, we all still loved it. Everybody my age still loved it. Now you hear younger people, whether it be people that are about my age or a little bit younger, like my wife, for example, she hates Halloween. Not only because she hates horror, but because she thinks it's a boring movie. That's crazy to me, but it's a thing that's realistically happening. This movie isn't slow and boring, it's just a mess. And it only works for people who were around at the time that those movies were coming out that it's referencing all the time. If you weren't, you're not going to care, like I said. So anyway, that's pretty much all of my thoughts on Deadpool and Wolverine. What did you think about it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let me know everything you think about it down below. Sorry for such a long, spoilery review. I could talk about a lot more, like how I'm not a big fan of the Cassandra Nova ending, or like how Pyro was in this and he looks nothing like he used to back in the day, the original actor. One more thing. Tyler Mane, Michael Myers himself, the original Sabretooth from the first X-Men movie, is in here again, and I was so excited to see him. He was there for 5 seconds and he died. I was so pissed. I wanted to see my Sabretooth, not Liev Schreiber. I wanted to see fucking Tyler Mane again, because he never gets work anymore, and it's bullshit. He's so good. But, you know, it is what it is. I got gypped again. Anyway, what do you think about Deadpool and Wolverine? Is it your favorite of the MCU recent movies, whatever phase we're in now? Is it your favorite Deadpool movie? I'd love to hear all that down below, too. What was your favorite part? What was your least favorite part? Let me know all that down below, too. Thank you all for watching, guys. God bless you all. Catch you later, and goodbye.